Welcome to the 6 Miles to Supper podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Cox, and I've lost over 80 pounds with intermittent fasting 6 days a week, eating whatever I wanted at my meals, taking a cheat day every Sunday, and walking 6 miles a day. And I'm here to help you on your weight loss journey. In today's episode, I want to talk about time traveling in the weight loss journey. Now, you may think, well, time travel isn't possible, but really it is, and it all happens inside your mind. And I have found that there are good ways to do this in the weight loss journey, and then there are some really bad, unproductive ways to do this. And so first, I want to talk about the good, though, because I think that time traveling in your mind can actually be very, very helpful, and it has kept me going when things otherwise kind of seem like I don't know why I'm even doing this. And so I'll tell you about the good side of it. The first one, and I think the most helpful thing, is thinking about the future. Because really, that's the only way to change what is going to happen in the future is to think about, like, what do my actions today, what is that going to lead to in the future? And if you're never thinking about the future, if you're not thinking about that at all, it might be that you never take action on your weight. If it's something that you're struggling with, you do want to lose weight. If you never really think about, this is something I want in the future, you may never take the steps to really start on your journey. And I think a really good question to ask yourself is what I'm doing now, today, going to make me better off a year from now? And if the answer is no, then that sends up a little bit of a red flag. And the thing is, in the weight loss journey, it's really easy to get in a really big hurry and not think about a year from now, and not think about, even 5 years from now or longer. It's easier to just be all worried about how you haven't made fast enough progress. But if you're thinking in terms of years, I think you'll find it gives you peace, and it lengthens out your timeline, and you start to think bigger picture. And one of the best things I ever did was this exercise, and you can do this at home. You can write a letter to yourself at 85 years old. And you can write to yourself about, how your life has turned out and what you're glad that you started doing right now, like no matter how old you are right now, and tell them, why it's so important that they do the things right now that you're wanting to do in order to get your weight where you want it to be. And this was especially helpful for me because, sometimes it was like, I thought it feels like this is something that's going to take too long it's going to take too long to lose the weight. And when I started to think of myself far off in the future, I started to realize it doesn't really matter, if this even takes years for me to get the weight off, because ultimately, in the big scheme of things, I will be happy that I did get the weight off. And it also helped me to have a bigger picture look at my daily walking, because sometimes I kind of felt like, well, is that even important to do? And I thought, as an 85-year-old woman, I would be really grateful that I started and continued into a walking habit of, moving that amount of miles every day, because I thought, that's going to keep me active and a lot more in good physical shape than I would be otherwise. Another good way to use time traveling is to learn from past mistakes. Now, this is a little bit tricky because you can kind of take this too far, because it requires that you kind of time travel to the past, which is usually a bad idea, but it can be helpful. So like if you have a day where you just kind of mess up, like you go completely off plan and you didn't mean to, and you just kind of messed up, it's helpful to time travel a little bit in your mind. Go back to when it happened. Okay, what exactly happened? And really examine those things. What exactly happened? Be really specific with yourself. And then ask yourself, like, what was going on in the environment around you? And then also, what was going through your head at the time? And you can, if you do that, you are going back to that situation. But if you do it that way, you're actually learning from it. And then with what you've learned, you can then plan for the future better. So I'll give you an example from my own life about how this worked for me. So one thing that was really bugging me at one point was I was doing intermittent fasting. I was being very consistent, but it always happened that when there was like a family gathering or something and it was in my fasting window, I always ended up eating. In the beginning, I would get, really guilty about that. I would feel bad that, I didn't stick to my plan. And so what I finally started to do was say, okay, let's go back in my mind. What was going on? Okay, well, what was actually going on was it wasn't that I was just feeling weak and had to eat. It was that I wanted to be included in the activities of that family gathering. I didn't want to sit there and not eat and not be a part of those things. And so when I realized that it wasn't about me being weak or whatever, it was just about me wanting to enjoy that fellowship, I learned that about myself, that this was going to be important for me to learn how to incorporate family events with, intermittent fasting. And what worked for me was to say, I can already see that I'm not going to enjoy myself unless I eat. So I'm going to go ahead and make a rule for myself that in the future, in times like that, I'm going to go ahead and eat. And once I incorporated that rule, then it made my life a lot simpler. And so time traveling in that instance really helped me. Now, the thing is, the time traveling to the past can be a bad thing. And here's how it can turn bad. If you go back to that time that you messed up and you just ruminate over it. So in other words, you just sit there and you think about it in a loop and you're just beating yourself up mentally because you messed up. You went off plan when you didn't mean to, or you overate, or whatever the thing is. If you just sit there and ruminate over it and you just beat yourself up constantly about it, that's not helpful. And it can actually make your life a lot harder than it needs to be. And ultimately, it does no good to wish that the past was different because there's nothing you can do about the past. You can only start with where you are right now and control what you do from today going forward. It also doesn't help to beat yourself up about just being overweight in the first place. It's so interesting to me when I think back to when I was first starting out the weight loss journey, how many times I just sat there in inaction, beating myself up for gaining the weight in the first place. And it was almost like I thought, I wish I just never would have gotten overweight. I just wish I never would have gotten overweight. And I wasn't doing anything about it, but I was just sitting there, beating myself up for being overweight in the first place. But that does no good. It only does you any good to say, okay, I'm not satisfied right now being overweight, so I'm going to start taking steps to get to where I want to be. But by the same token, it's important to not also try to just live in the future, because if you do too much of that, then that can make you not enjoy the present. Like if you're constantly just wishing you already had the weight off and you're just focused on that, I wish I just had the weight off. I wish I just had the weight off. This can make you hurry and do unsustainable things. So I would encourage you as much as you can to live in the present. Do your best right now to take stock of where you are. Make sure you've got some sort of plan that you are implementing and that you have some sort of goal for the future. You have an idea in your mind. I think I want to, be down at this certain weight range. And then live in day-tight compartments. So in other words, each day, focus on just today. Just focus on your actions for today. Not about, tomorrow and all the things going forward. Just focus on today. And enjoy yourself too. Just because you have extra weight, that does not mean that you can't start enjoying your life right now. And I actually did much better along the weight loss journey as I started to just enjoy my life wherever I was, at whatever weight. And that really helped me, I think, to be able to slow down because I started to just accept myself for what I was at that time. And I know right now, if you're in a place where you're overweight, you may be afraid that if you start to accept yourself, that will mean that you won't take the action necessary to lose the weight that you want to lose. But I would offer to you, my own experience has been that the more I love myself, the more I accept myself, the easier it is to take action to move towards the goals that I have set for myself. And the more I focus on just the present day, my actions in the present day, the more at peace I feel. And I've certainly noticed, like at my meals, when I sit down and I focus on just being present at that meal, I have a much easier time with controlling what I eat, as far as I don't just sit there and stuff it in and cram it in and eat really fast. On the other hand, I have noticed a definite pattern when I am stressed out and I'm thinking about, either the past or the future, and I'm just sitting there ruminating on things. That is certainly a very easy time for me to overeat. And a great book, and this is where the whole idea of day-tight compartments came in for me, was the book How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. If you find yourself ruminating a lot, I would offer you read that book because it really helped me. But also, when you notice yourself ruminating, force yourself to stop. I mean, it helps me to, one, if there's something there where I can take some sort of action. So in other words, if I'm ruminating over and over and over on something and I feel like, I messed up, then I stop myself and say, okay, how could I make that better for a future time? So I can't do anything about that past thing that happened, but in the future, when that situation comes up, what's a way that I can improve on that? And that really helps. And the other thing is to stop putting myself in situations where rumination tends to happen. So for example, like if I wake up early in the morning, if I just lie in bed and try to go back to sleep, that's usually when I start on this kind of path where I can start ruminating. So instead, I just get up and get my day started, which always helps me. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and this marks the end of Season 1 of the 6 Miles to Supper podcast. Thanks for listening. Do you want to lose the weight without getting rid of the foods you love and that you know you'll go back to eating again anyway? My book, The Laid Back Guide to Intermittent Fasting, teaches you how to practice intermittent fasting so that you lose the weight sustainably and keep it off for good. You can get the audiobook read by me for free when you sign up for your 30-day trial of Audible. The link is in the show notes. And if you've gotten value from this podcast and you'd like to let other people know about it, it would be great if you could leave a review on either iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. Thanks.